A little bit of a weird experience. First year, 14 years. I'm filming, I'm so sorry. Yeah, take one. It's just something to follow along with. And they have a book with these things. And actually, if you have this, you really don't need it. But he actually has
All right, it's 6 o'clock. Howdy. Look at that. We could do better. I know we're all tired. Howdy. My name is Philip Mack, and I am currently the 7th grade counselor, which means one thing that we're going to be doing this year is I actually will be moving up with your child, and I will be the 8th grade counselor. So if I have not had a chance to meet you, that could be a good thing. That means I maybe don't see your student a lot, which could be a good thing. But hopefully I have the opportunity to meet you and meet more with other students. So welcome to AM Consolidated Middle School, and this is of course our 8th grade registration informational night. The plan for tonight is kind of give you an overview of the registration process. You were here last year with the 7th graders, so similar, and then hopefully an opportunity to answer some questions if you have them. I want to make a few introductions here at the beginning. So I'm like the neophyte, the newbie, and then that's the old guy over there, Mr. Miles. So he'll be helping out tonight. There's just something to clarify if you have questions at the end. Thing about questions, you probably might have some specific questions. During the presentation, if it's a general question, maybe some clarifying that we need to do, I'll try to leave some breaks for that. If it's something that's really specific, we want to leave some time at the end. We'll try to stay as long as possible to answer more specific questions. Write them down and possibly email them. So Mr. Miles, and right there in the back is our principal, Mr. Mann. And so on the screen, I'll just walk through. You probably recognize most of these faces. There's Mrs. Ray all the way to the left of the screen, and she's one of our assistant principals. She's in both Oakwood and here. There's Mrs. Scott, who's currently our 7th grade assistant principal, and she, of course, will also be moving up and becoming the 8th grade principal next year. Then, of course, Mr. Mann right there, and then Mrs. Fagan, Mr. Miles, and then there's me, and I keep telling, I don't think I'm that much bigger, but I kind of look like a NFL athlete moving. I think they skewed my picture, but there's me, of course, on the end. So what you should have received, we did presentations with our 7th graders yesterday. And what I see some of y'all have, and here's Mrs. Scott right here. She's currently our 7th grade home yard group. So we did presentations yesterday with our 7th graders, and they probably brought you a course description guide. Just a little bit about that if you haven't had a chance to look through that, or if you haven't received that, you definitely want to ask your child about it. In the very front, there is a frequently asked questions portion. So a lot of the standard kind of questions that a lot of questions that you may have can be answered with that section. That's in the front. Also, I know people are already going through and filling out the course request sheet, the green sheet. The green sheet is our official sheet. I had a student come ask me today for another one because she said she messed it up, making changes. There is an additional sheet located in the back. I think it's maybe page 22, something like that. So just to, if you haven't had the conversation with your student yet, the official date that we would like these to be completed will be January 25th. So if you didn't know that date yet, that is the official date. On the 25th, we'll start meeting with our current 7th graders and going through this sheet, cleaning up things if we need to, and clarifying things. That happens, or begin happening on January the 25th. So one of the things that we really emphasize with our 7th graders when we're talking to them is, we talked a lot about high school. And for a lot of the kids, they were kind of thinking, Mr. Atkins, Mr. Miles was just a 7th grade, where I'm talking about high school. Well, I know many of you know, the reason we're having that conversation now is because some of them, a lot of them, are already taking high school credit courses. Actually, keyboarding, which is all of our 7th graders, is considered a high school credit course. So what we're telling our students is the decisions that we're making with this current registration, with the things that will happen over the summer, and then of course things that happen in the fall, will lead up to 9th grade registration, which will happen in the spring, likely in February. So we really aren't talking about a great deal of time, and we really wanted to emphasize that to our students, which I hope you will partner with us and do the same, because there are a lot of students who will be earning high school credit as 8th graders. So that's one of those things that's extremely important just to emphasize as they think about their work habits, their grades, and things of that nature. So a lot of the courses that we'll talk about a little later will end up on the high school transcript. Not all courses will affect their grade point average, but there are several courses that will go towards graduation. So they need the 26 credits, you're going to be talking about that. A lot of the courses that you may be working through and deciding on will go towards high school credit. And then there'll be a few that will actually impact grade point average. So what they graduate with from high school will be impacted by the courses that they'll take in 8th grade. And that's kind of what I just said right there. So if you notice, in that second bullet, there's grades that are recorded, but they're not applied to GPA. So these are the courses I'll say, these are high school credit, I'll repeat that a lot. They're high school credit courses, so they'll count towards that 26 credits for graduation, but they won't impact the GPA. 26 credits are what students need to graduate high school in the state of Texas. And then there are some exceptions, and those are the courses that you may already be looking at, and those are listed at the bottom. Those courses, honors and preview classes for next year, those courses will apply to high school credits, but also impact GPA. So that will be the significant difference if you're having that question. So if you're looking at your course sheet and you've already looked or selected those courses, that's that distinction right there, those ones at the bottom. Questions? So you've seen this before, so how we look at scheduling when we were telling the kids that magic number, if you're trying to figure out, does my child need to go to summer school? Can we take this combination of courses? The magic number is always 7. We do have 7 periods, but we're looking at a half credit, of course, will be a semester course. So if you're at 7.5, then you would have to have that conversation. If you're wanting to have that combination of courses, you would have to look at summer school or placement tests or something of that nature. So similar presentation, if you were able to be here, you have the required courses, and that's standard for every student. So there is one difference, and this year, last year it was keyboarding, excuse me, this year it's keyboarding. For 8th grade, it will be computer literacy, which is like the next level. So it's just standard, pretty self-explanatory, just the understanding they have working with computers, maybe spreadsheets, things of that nature. So it's not just your basic typing course anymore. That is a local credit, a local required course. So already with just our 4 core courses and the computer literacy, you can see you're more than halfway to that 7. So some variations in the path. If you have a student that is in advanced math currently, and that student scores a 90% or above on the basic algebra skills test. The expectation is that they have a 90% or above for the first 6 weeks, so that's August, all the way through this current 6 weeks. And then there are some screeners, some tests, some other tests that they may be taking in the class. And then, of course, teacher recommendation. And these students could possibly be enrolled in, or likely, in a lot of cases, be enrolled in Algebra 1 pre-AP. So if you go back to that previous screen, this is one of the high school credit courses where you get the credit for the class, but you also have to understand that GPA will impact high school graduation. So if you have a student that is enrolled in this course, we'll look at the credit piece, we'll also look at the GPA piece. So obviously, not every student may meet that standard. There are some differences in the rules. If you notice, the high school rules will apply to this class. One of the big things that's sort of like the kids perked up on is no test retakes. Also, no late work, and then the weight of the major grades of the major exams is now 75% as opposed to 60. So that's a big difference. Again, this is Algebra 1, the pre-AP version. Unusual behavior. We will say no though. Okay. So if a student does not qualify for the Algebra 1 pre-AP, then they will likely be an Algebra 1 regular. And just to give you that distinction once again, still high school credit, but it will not apply. Grade will be recorded, but it will not affect their GPA. And then, kind of the rules that we have in place now for advanced math stays the same. Sorry, I got my little boy over here. All right, so students who are currently in Algebra 1 will move up to geometry, and we do have that section. We have, I believe, about two sections. So depending on numbers, then we kind of anticipate that will stay the same. Now with geometry pre-AP, it's just like the Algebra 1 pre-AP, high school rules, no retakes, things of that nature. All right, so the assumption for our advanced English, if a student is currently in advanced English, our expectation in advanced English in 8th grade, unless there's a situation with teacher recommendation or something like that. If you have a student that has excelled, let's say they're not in advanced English so far, or they weren't in advanced English last semester, currently aren't. We've had some students that teachers are recommending. That's a conversation that we need to have pretty quickly. Student has performed really well and is currently not in advanced English. They could possibly move for this semester or then, of course, in the fall. Moving from regular math to advanced math is probably a little less likely at this point because we're talking about more standard in terms of building on kind of the curriculum and how it works. So conversations are being had between teachers and counseling staff. We have a lot of teachers there. Our teachers do a great job of monitoring students who may be in regular classes and saying that the students could have a lot of potential, they're performing well. So we have those kind of conversations. If you feel like nobody's contacted you, but your student is really knocking things out of the park, that's a conversation obviously you can initiate with us as well. But you will see some form of communication in the form of a letter that will be sent to you. So you won't necessarily have to be asking, did my kid make it? And it says, do you have the correct address? And y'all know from the registration process this year, y'all remember that fun part at the beginning of the year in August. We just want to make sure if you know you're moving or things are happening that are changing the registration, please make sure that you keep us up to date because a lot of that correspondence will depend on that. And of course, your registration process and how that might change will depend on that too. So computer lit. So it's required for all 8th graders. In early April, actually says, I guess it's late May, there was an opportunity to take a placement exam. I don't know if you want, Mr. Miles, do you know a little bit about that? Do you need to point anything out about that?
No, there's not really too much to say about the placement exam. There will be a review sheet that'll be available online on our website. That'll be coming up February or so. But other than that, there's not too much to say about it. If they pass this placement exam, then they don't have to take grader. And we do give it early so that the kids know their results, so that if they need to take summer school, they still have plenty of time to sign up for summer school.
So we would get those results prior to the end of the year so we can make those adjustments if the student were to place out. Again, all students have to sign up this course. If you recall, it was in the top left section, which is our required courses. Already said adjustment will be made. One of the things that you can do is if you already know, you've already done the calculation and you know your child is going to have to take computer lit this summer. If you want to make that note, you can make my son or my daughter will be taking computer lit, just so that can at least give us that indication. We'll still get the list, or excuse me, we'll get a list sometime in the summer, and then we'll make those adjustments in the fall for those summer students. So you can put that on that green sheet so that we can see that like a flag for us to look at that. And then it says alternates are important. We'll talk a little bit more about alternates a little later, but we want to make sure that's where if take the class, you have something in place for us to put in that spot. And because we'll assume that that's why they're going to summer school. This is a little bit about the summer school computer lit course. The estimate cost is around $100. Registration online would be April. It says last year was around the 10th. So maybe start looking mid-March for information, late March. And then, because this will be expected to have an informational meeting possibly. Okay. Health, that's on there for summer school, but that's sort of specific to students who may not be in athletics and have not already met that health requirement. Questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a cost of placement test for a computer lit?
No.
Will you be sending out something regarding that, or should we?
Probably put it out, definitely out on the website. I don't know, traditionally haven't sent out a formal.
We typically make announcements. There's a permission form, but it really should be called a notification form. We just want parents to know their kids are doing this. But if they show up and they want to take the test, we'll give it to them. It's going to be, I think we covered on the 30th and 31st of March. So, no, sir, it's actually right after school. And there's actually a state test the day before, so we try to move it right after that. So.
Okay, any students currently in athletics? Okay, we have a few. So the big thing about this section that we told the kids is they have to have an athletic coordinator signature. And that functions as a recommendation that that student is recommended to continue to athletics. So if a student is currently in athletics, then you would have had to meet the health requirement either the summer prior to this school year, or they took it last fall, or taking it now. So that would simply be a yes. If you currently have a student in athletics, our expectation is that they are meeting or have met that health requirement. For any parents and students that are interested in attending or enrolling in athletics, and it's still the same requirement, they still would have to meet that health requirement. And again, you have to go back to that number calculation to make sure they can fit in. So if you want a student, you know your child that didn't participate this year, or maybe they participated in sports, had a physical, but working in athletics class, then that health requirement would still have to be met. So assuming the student is not in athletics, one of our required courses is PE Foundations, and it's different than regular PE. It's sort of like a continuation of wellness. And the good thing about that, not in athletics, and they would be in PE Foundations. That is, an asterisk denotes that that is a high school fit course. So there's one PE credit for graduation from high school. This would be half of that requirement. So just a little bit more about athletics, and again, this is more so geared to those who may be interested in enrolling in athletics because you aren't at this current grade for high school athletics. There is an expectation requirement that they will go out for sports, actually, participate or try out for teams. Because the big thing about athletics is off season. We have students who enroll in athletics, maybe they don't make a team, but then they don't want to work out. So obviously, we don't want to put your child in a situation if we don't have to. So we want our students to understand that if they're not in season, it's mostly running and lifting weights. That's really the expectation. And then the remaining academically eligible course needs to be in effect as well. And then at the very bottom again, we'll require coach's signature. So we are telling the kids it's their responsibility to have a conversation with those athletic coordinators if they are interested. So this is a listing of what applies, or excuse me, what we currently offer, which I believe you probably are aware of.
Mr. Mackins, real
Yes,
quick.
sir.
There's been a change since this slide was created for athletics. The cross country has been taken out since it happens before school, and it's only in the mornings before school. So if your student is only doing cross country, then they don't need to be in the athletic course. So that's just a change from previous years.
This is just a little bit more about the PE Foundation, and again, it is required. Just some of the things that will be covered in the course. And again, just a big thing, just to keep in mind when you're having a conversation, the students may not want to take it. It is satisfying that high school PE credit, half of that credit. So if you have a student that is qualified as gifted and talented, some students, I believe quite a few of those students took one of these two courses. These are the two courses that we have here that are there for those students, the robotics and the simulations. We did tell the students that these are pretty much the only two courses that students can take again at the 8th grade if they choose to. If the student is super advanced, very highly intelligent, but is not GT qualified, then that course would not be available. It's only available for those GT students. All right, so if you have to start filling out your sheet, your child probably already had part of this filled out because we talked to them about Spanish 1A if they're currently enrolled in, or they were enrolled if it was a 2-year commitment. So students, if they were in 1A, they'll be in 1B. If a student did not take Spanish, then they wouldn't just jump into 1B. So they would pretty much, most of those students who didn't take it would be taking it in high school. So I know we have a lot of dual language students. So what happens for them, obviously different from just Spanish 1A and 1B. In order to move from like Spanish 2 to Spanish 3, there are some performance things, of course. There's approval. There's a placement exam though for students. We have students who maybe didn't take Spanish at all, but they are fluent in reading, writing, or speaking it. So there is we'll talk about the choice real quick. So if you notice that Spanish 3, so if you have students in Spanish 2, again, that pre-AP pops up in the honors. So if they're in Spanish 2 honors already, then that course did apply to high school credit, and it did apply to GPA, the same thing for Spanish 3 pre-AP. So say we have a student who's in Spanish 3 currently as a 7th grader. So what happens for those students is we don't offer Spanish for it here at Consolidated Middle School. There is an option to take that on the high school level. But what that means is that will be one of the students, like some of the students we currently have, where they have to travel to the high school for that class. And we don't provide the transportation, so that's one of the things to consider. So someone would have to pick them up from here, drive to the high school for, maybe drive them to high school first. I think maybe our students go there first. So pick them up from high school, bring them here for class. every day for the year, so that's something to consider. But that option is available as long as transportation is provided. If that's not, say, a possibility for families to do for our current Spanish 3 students, then we do have a course that functions as a way to keep those skills sound and strong, and it's in the spring of their 8th grade year, and it's a Spanish literacy course. It doesn't have the same benefits in terms of for your child to go into Spanish 4, and that's a way to keep them kind of current, keep those skills sound and strong. And it is optional. Any questions on that section? All right, so I believe I could probably assume that if we're on the 8th grade level, if your student has been involved in music and they plan to continue, then we know that that's a full year commitment. Orchestra, unfortunately, if you have a student that's interested in that and has not done that in the past, that course would not be available. However, band and choir, it's the first year, 8th grade, the first year, they decide they want to sing, they're excited about it. Those courses they can join those courses in the 8th grade. All right, so we have all our electives, and we told our kids if they compare this to 7th grade, and if you do the same, obviously, there's a few more on there. Some of them are similar. The only thing that's important about this screen is, and it'll definitely come into play with the alternates, is can't have double courses, can't take a course 7th grade, so can't do R1 twice. So when we're doing alternates, that's important to remember. At the same time, if you have not done part 1, you can't jump into R2 in 8th grade. So there is that prerequisite requirement. Some things that are different and new for our 8th grade or incoming 8th graders is we do have aide positions, counselor aide, office aide. Those are kind of open. What we do challenge our kids, or at least give them the understanding, is we did, I guess, 7 presentations, sometimes with 3 classes. Pretty much a good number, maybe, I don't know, it could have been easily half the class or half the group wanted to be an office aide. So all those positions are limited in terms of how many spots we have. So we tell our kids, and as you know as parents, if your child is really going to go about doing it, that's great. We want them to pick possibly 2 and put it to that spot, but also understand that space is limited. So there's a good chance, it might not be available to them. So again, this is where alternates is extremely important. Cat News is different too. That's our yearbook staff. There's an application. So if they want to do that, they could pick up Apple if you are interested in that. You notice PE is on there as well, but as communicated earlier, that's your traditional team sports PE, so it's different from the PE foundations. One other difference is the common applications and speech. Cool thing about that one, like we told the kids again, if you look, there's an asterisk. So again, we're talking about high school graded course. There is a speech credit in high school, as maybe you might remember, probably a class we all loved. Well, they can do that in the middle school. Just a little bit about Avid. The student is currently enrolled in Avid. That will continue. There's no new application or interview process. So those deadlines are for students who are interested in Avid and they are not currently enrolled. Applications will be available February 1st and they're due by the end. Ms. Laviette is our coordinator. So if you want more information, you can either email us or contact her. Talk about the yearbook. Again, applications are available and they're due 25th. So we're telling all of our students the 25th is the day that we expect all this information to be completed. It's a good place to stop. Questions, anybody? All of the aid positions aren't there. There's also band aid. But we don't expect students to have perfect grades, but obviously they need to be responsible with their grades, so it's open up to a wider group of students. Our biggest thing is how they carry themselves, character, their social skills, for instance. Our counselor aides are kind of like our ambassadors when we have new students, so we kind of expect those kind of qualities. But again, limited enrollment. All right, so there's that magic number again, and again, I know y'all have seen that for a few years. Hasn't changed. But this is the section that I think is really important, and sometimes it doesn't really get filled in. I see a lot of sheets that have blanks at the bottom. So I really encourage you, when you're talking over with your students, to really think about this section, because this is an important section for us if we have a situation where sometimes, unfortunately, space may be an issue. Spots fill up in a class. So what we have to do is go to the alternates. Or, again, if your student takes computer literacy in the summer, we want to be able to put a course in there, a course that your child wants to take. So I told the kids yesterday, we call them the just in case courses, just in case I take computer lit. This is the first choice that I would like to go into that spot. So it would be really beneficial if y'all can have that section filled out, because we do look at that section. There's a lot of times we have to go to those courses for whatever reason. And then, of course, your signatures on the bottom. This is just some other information for other courses that a student may be enrolled in. Primarily, must be contingent upon how a student performs on the STAR test. There's a math enrichment and an accelerated reading, and they are full-year courses. Once we get that STAR information back, we'll kind of look at what the needs are, and some students, it might be beneficial for us to give them that extra support by one or both of these enrichment courses. So it's not a punishment, but we do tell the kids really the only way to really guarantee that we won't need that course is to perform on the STAR, perform well on the STAR. It's just information about cheerleading and dance. I have to double check me on this slide because I don't know if I've seen anything different.
Yeah, the only thing I see in this slide is that the March 2nd date is not set. Both the cheer and the dance meetings that are required will be in early April. Be looking for those if your child is interested in cheer or if they're interested in dance. And also realize that those are after school organizations. It's not a class you select on your registration sheet. You don't take a cheerleading class or you don't take a dance class. So.
Any questions so far? All right, so we understand that we're starting this process early, and it's just the nature of being in this profession. We do have to kind of look at what students are wanting so we can do some planning on our part for the fall semester. So we know that there may be some conversations that happen after the 25th, and maybe you decided, hey, we want to do something a little different. So we're asking that you give us notification, preferably before. Again, we're going to be working with your schedules over the summer, just to make sure that we can get the things that you want and make it all work. So email would be okay. So some type of written notification that you would like to change something would be very good. So I talked about these dates, the 25th, that's the big day. So over the course of those 3 days, we will be sitting down with your child and clean up the schedule if there are problems. There may be some notification if we just, something's not clear, but we really want to just get all that straight, before we plug everything in and start going with that part of the process. A big thing, I'm sure I'm confident that you emphasize this to your students, but one of the big things that we encourage our students as we were speaking with them yesterday is we did a survey of how many students were involved, because the research shows that when students are engaged and involved in school, involved in clubs, they do better. And what we want to do is we are preparing our current group of kids for high school. and there are a ton more clubs on the high school level. So a big part of middle school is kind of that trial and error, figuring out how to manage your schedule, figuring out things like growing in leadership or what kind of interests we have. So we really want to encourage our students to just get involved in the club, even if it's just one. Not just so they can do better, but so they can learn some of those skills that will obviously help them on the next level. National Junior Honor Society is one that applies for 8th grade. That's the only one that they couldn't join at this point. So, surely I wasn't that good. We can take questions, general questions at this point. This is kind of short and sweet, but we know y'all are the GT bunch, so y'all are here. Any questions? Do we have some specific questions? You can say, I see some nods. So this is what we can attempt to do. Mr. Miles is here, and we're going to stay around and answer questions as best we can right now. If there are some things that are super specific, they'll contact you. But we definitely want to give you some time to ask some questions. If you've already been looking at your schedule and you've seen some problems or just some concerns, then feel free to stick around. Okay. So I really appreciate you all coming out tonight. Email us, contact us if you need further information. And we hope y'all have a great night.